All right, Christina Lamond. Protein powder recommendations, please. Well, that's a great question. You guys know I'm a big fan of whey protein. I think whey protein is great. It's the highest biological value of any protein powder that I'm aware of. It's very high as a proportion of amino acids in leucine, and it's got a very balanced amino acid profile beyond leucine, because leucine is the necessary but not sufficient amino acid with regards to triggering and sustaining muscle protein synthesis. So you need leucine, but leucine alone is not enough to build muscle. But whey protein is great because it contains a high amount of leucine and it contains a bevy of other wonderful amino acids. So, I'm a huge fan of whey protein. A lot of people will claim that they have digestive issues with whey protein. And to those people, I say, well, you've got some options with whey. You've got whey protein concentrate and you've got whey protein isolate. For people who tend to have digestive issues with whey protein, I would say err on the side of whey protein isolate, which is just a much cleaner form of whey protein, meaning it's got fewer fat and carbohydrate residues. It's just a lot more stringently filtered. So what you're getting with whey protein isolate is just a much more pure protein product. It's also going to be, whey is free of casein. So in dairy protein is comprised of two protein types. You've got your casein and your whey. There is some thinking based on emerging science that many people don't digest A1 casein as well as they do A2, which is thought to be the ancestral form of the casein protein. I'm not super well versed in this science just yet. I would love to have an expert on the podcast to school me in that regard. But the thinking is that at some point along the trajectory of the modern cow, the ancestral A protein was somehow converted to or mutated or whatever to A1. And that's led to some of the digestive issues that many people claim to have when digesting commercially available dairy protein. There are now even some products on the market that are made using A2 dairy. There's a company called Pioneer Pastures, which I invested in actually recently because of their desire, their passion for educating around the differences between A1 and A2. So Pioneer Pastures makes a great A2 alternative. But all that is to say that whey protein is free of casein. So for people who have any issues digesting casein, whey protein doesn't have any of that. The other thing that whey protein isolate has over whey protein concentrate is that whey protein concentrate is going to contain trace lactose. So if you're lactose intolerant, whey protein isolate is virtually a carbohydrate-free, lactose-free form of whey that should be very well tolerated. So when people say that they have sensitivity to whey protein isolate, I can't help but raise an eyebrow to that because there's virtually nothing in it of dairy origin that is known to be problematic to people. So for people who still claim that they don't easily digest whey protein isolate, then my suspicion is, okay, well, what's actually in the whey protein formulation that you're consuming? Is it perhaps an additive or an emulsifier that's causing you, digestive upset? I would then look to try different brands, different whey protein isolate brands. We work with two companies that produce great whey proteins. I've mentioned this. I mentioned this in the prior AMA, but Kion makes a whey protein isolate, as does I believe Momentus's whey protein is whey protein isolate. I'm not 100% sure on that actually, but both are great. Kion, I know for a fact, is whey protein isolate. And they use minimal ingredients other than the protein itself. So I would give either of those two brands a try. Now, grass-fed is sometimes lauded in terms of, protein powders like whey protein, grass-fed whey protein isolate. That's not something that I actually look out for. I think that I don't think you should be overspending on a whey protein powder that's grass-fed unless you can easily afford it, and you care about, the way that the cows are raised. Like I think that there's merit to that from a sourcing standpoint, but in terms of its nutritional value, what a cow eats dictates primarily the fatty acid, the makeup of its fat, the nutrients that are contained in its fat, its fatty acid profile, and the like. So not as essential for whey protein, and especially not as important for whey protein isolate, which has all of the fat and carbohydrates excluded. Now, for people who just don't want to do dairy, then I would say plant protein, like a blend of pea and rice, can sometimes hit that same, because protein formulators know that plant protein is not as high in leucine, so they'll use some combination of pea and rice to hit whatever the desired leucine target is, which hopefully you're dealing with a manufacturer that is aware of the 2.5 gram leucine threshold that we talked about earlier. But I'm not really a fan of plant-based protein powders because they tend to be hyper-processed. Many of them do contain heavy metals, the dose of which, varies product to product, but it's just not something that if I'm consuming every day, it's not something that I necessarily want to expose myself to. When it comes to flavors, my personal preferences are either vanilla or unflavored. There was a study that came out, I forget if it was either Consumer Labs or the Clean Label Project, but they found that chocolate flavored protein powders did tend to contain lead, which makes sense because cheap cocoa sourcing, you don't know where the cacao is coming from, and cacao can harbor lead. So I tend to reach for, by default, an unsweetened or an unflavored whey protein, or vanilla. Those are my sort of go-to. I wouldn't necessarily go for beef protein. I know that that's now on the market, heavily marketed, but to me it's unclear what proportion of that protein is just beef skeletal muscle, dehydrated skeletal muscle versus collagen. And when I'm supplementing with a protein powder for the intent of supporting muscle protein synthesis, I want to know that the protein that I'm ingesting is high quality and is not collagen unless I choose to supplement with collagen. So I think that there should be a separation. And I just find that the beef protein powders that I've seen tend to not disclose the amino acid profile. And to me, that is a red flag. If I'm supplementing with protein powder, I want to know what I'm supplementing with. I either want to supplement with a high quality leucine-rich protein powder, or I want to supplement with collagen. I don't want to supplement with something that's trying to do both and is not being clear about which sort of side of that aisle it's situated on, if that makes sense. So I would generally avoid beef protein powder for that reason. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.